Good evening, everyone. As I went to review this week's discussion prompt, I felt like I'd be missing out tremendously on a great opportunity to further examine a major issue that I've actually been researching for our community case study project, and that issue is homelessness. So according to data collected by the United States Census Bureau in 2023, roughly 653,100 people, or 20 out of every 10,000 Americans in the United States, are experiencing homelessness. The number alone is alarming to hear to begin with, but what's most alarming, in my opinion, is recognizing that this number is merely an estimate and likely a vast underestimate due to issues surrounding differences in how count is conducted across varying jurisdictions throughout the nation, according to Dorn 2024. For example, in late 2022, a count that was recorded by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development suggested that there were just 15 individuals who were considered unsheltered within the northern panhandle of West Virginia, which is where I'm from. In an article by Allen 2022, she quickly put these statistics into question after conducting an interview with an individual who was struggling with homelessness here in my hometown of Wheeling, West Virginia. And they were quoted as saying that they could recall nearly 50 other individuals who were experiencing similar circumstances that were living within the same encampment that had come about here within the city. As I think about homelessness from a biblical perspective, one of the first things that comes to mind for me is the idea that Christ himself came into the world without a physical home to call his own. If anyone knows what it's like to be homeless, it's Christ, and he makes it known how important it is for us to care for those who are in need. Matthew 5:42, for example, prompts us to give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. When I think of my own journey as not only a budding counselor, but also a child of God, I recognize the importance I hold in being able to prevent others from suffering. I think a lot about Christ's birth, and if the innkeeper had not allowed Mary and Joseph to take up temporary residence within the stable where he was delivered, it's difficult to say where he might have been born. And while it might not come across as the kindest of gestures due to the fact that Mary and Joseph were denied a room and the innkeeper kind of told them there was no space for them, they still made that space within the stable. And that piece is something that I think about frequently. So the concept of making space for someone and making space for people who are in need. As a Christian counselor conceptualizes prevention surrounding homelessness, I think that an important part to this requires remembering that we're all, in a sense, homeless without Christ, and therefore we can relate far more intimately with those who are struggling than we realize. With regard to a primary prevention program, I recognize that homelessness is unfortunately not an issue capable of being solved overnight. I do believe, however, that we have the power to continue making strides in figuring out ways we can prevent it before it continues to evolve into an even bigger problem than it already is. If I were to create a primary prevention program, I might begin by utilizing the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness's strategic plan to end homelessness. Within the plan, for example, it states that it's necessary to focus on strengthening partnerships between an array of federal, state, local, and private programs. So for my community, this would look like partnering with area schools, rehabilitation centers, hospitals, mental health treatment facilities, substance abuse facilities, public service organizations, local service groups, churches, and even local media stations. Within these partnerships that I would form, I would then need to plan how we would be able to service low-income households with programs that are going to address things like poverty, heightening awareness of homelessness and the issues that come with that, finding ways to advance education and employment opportunities. Things like that would all be important and would all be prioritized within the development of this plan. And as the Interagency Council of 2024 suggested, finding ways to support upward economic mobility through establishing connections to more affordable access to health services and introducing individuals to a range of other programs and systems that support strong and thriving communities would also need to be incorporated into the establishment of an effective prevention strategy. So devising a way to provide strong early care and educational resources within schools and community-based services, or even the home or with families and caregivers, would also be something that would need to be considered and prioritized. And finally, in recognizing the issues surrounding the encampments that are becoming more prominent within my city specifically, which was touched on earlier within this discussion, I think it's going to be crucial to understand the danger that lies with not finding ways to provide more adequate resources for those who are struggling. That is, as Alan states, while these sites can suffice for a limited portion of time for those who are living there, they're in no way permanent solutions and often come with notices to vacate for issues surrounding trespassing or dangerous living conditions. So even though they're finding places to reside, these places are often extremely dangerous and not safe for them, and definitely not conducive to healing or finding a way away from homelessness. In an article by Olivet 2024, she further expands upon this by highlighting the challenges that have recently begun to arise due to an increase in the development of laws that are focusing on criminalizing homelessness rather than finding solutions that are going to help those individuals overcome the issues and struggles that they're facing. Through establishing more permanent solutions for those who are struggling, like partnering with those who are dedicated to finding ways that we would be able to provide more affordable housing, better employment opportunities, and more accessible healthcare and similar resources, we're better able to serve the individuals who are struggling and therefore the community as a whole. And similarly, as Christians, we're doing our part in serving others in the way that Christ would hope that we would.